Okay, folks, we are live. How's it going, everybody? Chuck Holton is in Syria again. We're at our patrol base, or safe house, whatever you want to call it, in the city of Kamishi, which is in northeast Syria, one of the few places that has not been taken over by Ahmed al-Galani and his troops yet. And, Ahmed al-Galani and his troops, if they ever do take all of Syria, might not hold it for long. It appears that there are quite a few of the black pajama boys in Syria now just waiting for their chance to overthrow al-Sharia and take over the country. That is going to be kind of awkward if that happens for many world leaders that have lined up to kiss the ring that al-Sharia wears. But a report that was given by the former intelligence chief from Iraq yesterday said that he believes the is people, if you know what I'm talking about, Black Pajama Gang, it right now, currently, over the last year, has gone from about 2,000 or 3,000 fighters left, vestiges of their glory in Syria, to about 10,000. And there are apparently factions that have been submitting themselves to al-Galani and his forces here in Syria that are changing sides now and going over to fight next to the black pajama people. And those takfiri are, well, they're just, that's par for the course, is what I'm trying to say. In this part of the world, a lot of people, when it comes to deciding which side to fight on, are going to just choose what they perceive to be the strongest horse. And in so doing, they don't have any real serious principles. They convince themselves that they do. But in reality, they're just going to switch sides if someone else appears to be ascendant and the party they belong to appears not to be. Okay, so don't give me that no sound business. If I was no sound, there'd be 9 million messages in the chat. So, folks, it's about 9 o'clock at night here, and I've been running all day long. So I'm going to try to get through this stuff really quickly and then get to your questions and get done so I can get some sleep, because we got another big day tomorrow, even bigger day tomorrow than we had today. And today was pretty big by itself. Before I get to that, we got to say thank you to our sponsors, and I'm very happy to do so. Folks, I've been telling you to buy gold and silver for months and months and months. Do you know that silver has gone up more than 1% a day for the last month? It's up 36% in the last 30 days. Silver is. And there's a huge arbitrage issue. I don't know if you understand arbitrage or not, but on an exchange in China right now, an exchange in the United States, you can buy gold for about $114 an ounce. The last time I spoke to you about that 2 days ago, it was $109 an ounce. Okay, so it's gone up a bunch since then. But there's a silver exchange in China that's quoting $139 an ounce, and so there's that creates pressure of people who want to go buy it at the cheaper price and go sell it in the more expensive, silver exchange. That's called arbitrage. And so what I'm telling you is that it's likely that these prices are going to continue going up for the short term. And so it's not too late to get in. So Preserve Gold is the best way to do that. If you go to their website, or if you just text the word Chuck to 50505, they will send you a free wealth protection guide. They'll explain to you everything you need to know. It'll help you take some of your 401k or your IRA and put it into the put it into like physical gold and silver, or they'll ship some right to your house. So as somebody says, you cannot eat gold. The only thing worth anything is land or houses. Wait, I didn't know you could eat land and houses. Actually, it's much, much, much easier to sell to sell gold if you need food to eat than it is to sell land and houses to get food to eat, if it comes to that. So I don't know that that's the greatest comparison. But anyway, thank you to Preserve Gold for sponsoring today's podcast. We really appreciate them. I'm going to be interviewing their CEO again here next month, and you're going to want to stick around for that. So stay tuned. Now, let's talk about what's going on, first of all, with the military buildup in Iran. Basically, what we have been seeing between Iran and President Trump is this thing that I remember back in the day when I was in elementary school and we had recess. Some kids would go out and play dodgeball, and some kids would go out and play, what is that one that goes around the pole both ways? I forget what that one's called. But it seems like most of the guys in my class just wanted to go out and fight each other. And this was back in the day before they had, zero tolerance policy on violence and things like that. So we would just go out and beat each other up a whole lot. But there was a process to that. It wasn't, you didn't just walk out there and just sock somebody. You had to, tetherball. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, you had to work up to it. And so you'd be like arguing, verbal confrontation with somebody over something stupid, a girl or whatever. And then it would, before you got to pushing, it would escalate to chest bumping, and you'd talk talk smack, right? You'd be like, yeah, your mama and my, and you'd come up with the most foul, profane, and physically impossible things to suggest on your opponent. And then it would escalate to pushing and shoving, and then you'd go to fisticuffs, right? That was the way it used to work. I don't think kids get in fights anymore because they're not allowed to, and I'm not sure that's always the best for young men. But nevertheless, this is what we're seeing from President Trump and Iran. So President Trump put out a tweet, and I'm going to read it for you here because it's a good one. A massive armada is heading to Iran. It's moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. I'm trying to just picture a flotilla of 4 ships moving enthusiastically. Like, what would that look like exactly? Are they shaking their bums or what? I don't know. So they're headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. That sent to Venezuela. I'm not sure what that meant. Like with Venezuela, it is, ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. Hopefully, Iran will quickly, quote, come to the table, unquote, and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't, and there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So that's him, getting up there and beating his chest and saying, come on, you want a piece of me? And then Iran has been putting out similar messages for some time. I talked to you, I think, yesterday about that they're putting out videos that show the Abraham Lincoln being blown up. I saw one that showed President Trump on the Abraham Lincoln. This was AI-generated video, and easy to tell because the Iranian missiles that blew up the Abraham Lincoln came down back end first, like they were landing, coming out of orbit or something. It was weird. But they showed this video of them capturing President Trump, and he was crying and pleading for mercy. So E for effort there, Iran. At least you're getting, sort of creative with your ridiculousness. But I don't think that's really going to deter President Trump. If anything, that's going to inflame President Trump, and you're almost guaranteeing that we're going to war. President Trump has continued. This is the real sad thing is that a lot of this started with President Trump's tweet several weeks ago now that said, quote, Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I've canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on the way. MEGA, President Donald J. Trump. MEGA. Make Iran great again. So that was several weeks ago. In the intervening time period, there have been something on the order of perhaps 40,000 more people killed by the Iranian regime. Now, I'm not that far from Iran where I'm sitting right here. And because there are a lot of Kurds in Iran and there are a lot of Kurds here, we've been hearing from quite a few of the Kurds that we talk to that they have friends or family that are in Iran, and they're hearing from those people from time to time, and the killing is not stopping. They are trying to kill their way out of this problem by murdering their own people, and that should not go well for them. But you know what? The Iranian people are not going to be able to do it by themselves. They're going to need some help, and how we help them, I want to say, in a way, I'm grateful that President Trump wants to be careful and wants to make sure we do it right. I certainly would not think it'd be the best idea to go off half-cocked on something like this. And we have the ability, if we get all our ducks in a row, to do what's basically a decapitation strike on Iran. Maybe not specifically target the Ayatollah or anything, but target a whole bunch of his lieutenants or generals or whatever, target all of the command and control that they use to give directions to their military, target their military bases, target their police stations, all those kinds of things would theoretically make it easier for Iranians to step in and finish the job. It seems like the best thing would be for Mossad agents or CIA agents that are inside Iran to arrange for some air support from the United States or Israel and work it out so that they could take out the people guarding arms depots and then pass those arms out to Iranian citizens and then let them take it from there. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, before I go any further, I want to point out our friend Scott Ritter, who provides us with just so much content to ridicule and laugh at, and to show you exactly what it looks like to be consistently wrong on everything. This man who spent years in prison as a pedophile, and now he has his own show, of course, and his own YouTube channel and all that stuff. But this guy's an American. He's a former Marine, I believe. So wouldn't you expect him to be a little more patriotic than what he says here?
The decision maker in Iran, the Abraham Lincoln would already be sunk, American bases would already be destroyed, Israel would be eliminated, and I'd be carrying out operations against the Kurds in Iraq, the Baluch, I'd be wiping out the Avaz, I'd be killing anybody suspected of MEK ties. I'd be sending assassination teams around the world to kill the Shah's son. I would kill everybody. But that's just me.
So, but that's just me. If I was in charge in Iran, I would have already sunk the USS Abraham Lincoln. He's calling for the murder of approximately 5,000 soldiers. I'm sorry, not soldiers, sailors and Marines on the Abraham Lincoln. Presumably, if he was going to sink the Abraham Lincoln, he'd have to have sunk the other 3 ships that are in its armada. So you're talking all told, I don't know, what, 10,000 U.S. troops that he's calling for their death. He said he would kill those Americans if he had the chance. He is saying he would be sending out assassination teams across the globe. He says, I'd kill everybody. He would have destroyed Iran. I'm sorry, not Iran, Israel. He would have destroyed Israel by now. Is that not the grossest thing you've ever heard him say? I was just shocked when I heard that today. I mean, this guy's beyond the pale most of the time. And he certainly is very cozy with our enemies. So I would consider him a traitor anyway. But to hear that come out of his mouth was just, wow. There you go. He just said the quiet part out loud. And so that, with that context, let's take a look at what is actually arrayed against Iran right now, okay? So we pull up this image here, a graphic that shows we've got some THAAD missiles likely in Kuwait and K5, or KSA, sorry. We've got some Patriot missiles up there. We've got the Abraham Lincoln and its literal ships out off the southern coast of Iran, near Oman, in place, in position. We've got troops in all the places where you see black dots. Now, you notice one of those black dots is in Israel. Okay, we also have troops in Syria and in Iraq. I don't know why they didn't include that. But look at all the different kinds of aircraft they've got in the air. Now, the A-10 Warthog is the more interesting one for me. The rest of those are easily explained. The C-17s are cargo aircraft. The C-5s are cargo aircraft. The C-130s are cargo aircraft. KC-135s are refueling aircraft. And then you see the signals intelligence and the electronic warfare aircraft as well, and the fighter jets, which would be dropping bombs and things like that. But the A-10 Warthog, we have those in theater. That is...
Hey, everybody. His Starlink just cut out, so he will be back. He just got to restart his Starlink real quick, and he'll be joining us shortly here soon. We'll take a moment to say go over to our store. You can buy a Hot Zone t-shirt. We've got other things on the store over there. It's a great place to go get some really fun stuff. Great merch. I am super happy with the t-shirts that we got. And so go over to our shop and get some t-shirts. All right. Chuck is back.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. I'm in Syria. What can I say? The Starlink has a hiccup once in a while. So I apologize for that. But so what I was getting at is that the A-10 Warthogs are aircraft that are made for one thing and one thing only, and that is to support troops on the ground. They fly low and very fast. They are basically an entire airplane built around a giant Gatling gun, and they will blast the you-know-what out of anything in its way. Tanks, trucks, people, whatever. They are a very deadly machine, and they're one of the favorites of the troops when you're in contact, because you hear that coming from behind you, and you start to see things explode in front of you. And so that's really good. By the way, inflation, I guess, has really been a thing in Syria. I went yesterday and got about $150 that I wanted to transfer into Syrian money. And this is what it looks like here. This is the Syrian money. That's 5,000. That's a little less than $1, maybe. Okay. And that's the other side. It's got some guy there. I don't know what he's doing. He's saluting, I guess. So they gave me a stack for $150. I guess the largest bill they have is 5,000, which is like a $1 bill or something. So they gave me a stack like this tall of these things. And every time you go to buy an apple, you're like, let's see here. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Another thing that's interesting is what we did today. And I want to get to that in a minute, but before I do, I want to finish up talking about Iran. Whoops, sorry. I just punched the wrong button. I want to finish up talking about what's going on in Iran, and then we'll talk more about what's happening here in Syria. Now, there was a protest apparently last night in Iran, and I've got the footage here I want to put up. So there are apparently still hundreds of thousands of people going out in the streets, despite the fact that the government is shooting to kill. Not only that, they're shooting to blind, and then they said something like tens of thousands of people that have been blinded by bullets in these protests. And then if you go into the hospital and you're blind, because you got hit at a protest, they know you were at the protest, and they come into the hospital and they arrest you and they take you out in the street and they shoot you in the head and finish the job. So we've seen some of that as well. We also saw them hang a guy that they accused of working for Israel. Actually, they accused all of the protesters of working for Israel. So that footage I just showed you is some of the only footage I can show you on YouTube without getting demonetized, because there's a lot of very graphic stuff out there, you can imagine. But not much is getting out. We are hearing messages, as I told you, from people inside Iran that are saying that it is only getting worse. Things are not getting better. So let's continue to pray for the people in Iran. Now, while we're praying for the people in Iran, we also need to be praying for the Kurds here in Syria. They are essentially surrounded in two different locations. One is Kobani, up near the Turkish border, out further west from here. It's about being a 2-hour drive or something from here, maybe a little more right now, depending. And they have been completely surrounded by HTS forces. Then here in Kamishi, where I am, they're also almost surrounded. They still have a sliver of land. Let's see if I can maybe bring up a map and show you the map while we're talking. So there it is. No, that's not it. That's not it. No, that's not it. There's the map. Okay. So the purple area there is the area that is still controlled by the Kurds. They used to have everything that is dark brown and purple, that whole eastern, area. But right now they are kind of in that little pocket up in the far northeast corner. And al-Galani's forces are saying that if they don't lay down their arms, that there will be more fighting. And it's going to be very, very bad and bloody for the people here in Rojava. And today I interviewed a Christian man. He's a Syriac Christian. And let's put that away. Who lives here. And he was like, why is everybody only talking about the Kurds? There's a lot more than Kurds that lives up here. And there are maybe 10,000 Syriac Christians that are also being threatened up here. Those are those Christians that, like the Maronites, they speak Aramaic, Jesus language. And I've been to some of their churches before. It's fascinating stuff. But they believe the same Bible we do. And they are saying, why isn't the world talking about us? Why isn't the world coming to our aid? Well, it's because the Syrian Democratic Forces are made up primarily of Kurds. This area used to have a lot more Christians in it and Yazidis, but now it's mostly Kurds, which are Sunni Muslim. Okay, but there's still plenty of Yazidis, plenty of Christians, Armenian Christians, Syriac Christians, even some Maronites that are in this area. And they are all under threat. Now, if you just imagine, if we go back to this map for a second, all the people that lived in the brown areas here, the dark brown areas, and then this lighter kind of pink area being pushed out of those areas into the purple area. And that's essentially what's happened. So the town I'm in of Kamishi, which is up there in the top of the screen near the Turkish border, where that box is pointing to at the top. Kamishi is a town of 200,000 people that currently has about 200,000 internally displaced refugees inside the city limits. So today we went to a couple of elementary schools. There are no classes taking place there because the schools have been taken over by refugees and they are living there. We talked to people who have been on the run. They got here about 2 weeks ago, 12 days ago, something like that. And they are right now being housed in classrooms in these schools. It's obviously, it's not a residential facility. So each classroom has like 4 families assigned to it. There's no furniture. There's no dividers. There's no privacy. It's you and 3 other families you probably didn't know before this that are all sleeping together on the floor of a school classroom. They have piled all the desks out in the hallway, in the breezeways, to make room in there. And then they each classroom has a little diesel-fired stove, and that's what they burn for heat. You can imagine that's not real healthy. It's not real clean, but that's what they have, and so that's what they burn for heat. They make diesel fuel here in this part of Syria. It's not good diesel fuel. It's pretty dirty, but they have plenty of it, is what I'm saying. So a lot of things burn diesel: generators, cars, and heating stoves all burn diesel fuel. So we went and did a distribution of those people and took them, staple foods, warm clothing, blankets, stuff like that. All in all, today we served about 300 people, and it was absolute chaos. You can imagine if a bunch of Americans show up at a place with 150 desperate refugees in it, and we start handing stuff out for free, things are going to get skippy real fast, and that's really what happened. As a matter of fact, I made a video about it, and I'm going to put that video up over at chuckholton.com for you to watch. But I'm going to just play a little trailer, just the first 30, 45 seconds of the video to give you an idea of what it looked like there today. This is just a couple hours ago before it got dark. It was a very miserable day today. It rained all day long. It was windy. It was cold, probably in the 30s. And the people are really suffering because, again, they just don't have good heat options. We bought a couple of generators today for 2 big apartment buildings that didn't have electricity, which means they didn't have running water or light. And so we bought generators for each building today, and so on and so forth. But here's what it looked like at one of the distributions. It's absolute insanity at this school tonight as the Free Burma Rangers have showed up to make a food distribution for families that have been displaced because of the fighting. And there are probably 150 people at this school. Many of them have been displaced multiple times. So I just want to take you and show you around and let you get a chance to see what this looks like. Okay, so that's all I've got time to show you on the live tonight. But if you want to see what it looks like inside there, go over to chuckholton.com and become a supporter, and then you'll get access to it now. That'll eventually make its way over to YouTube, but you'll have to wait a few days probably to do that. So if you want access to it now and lots of other special things, go to chuckholton.com. I mean, that is how we are supporting this work. If you want to help us, if you want to make a difference for these Kurds, go to chuckholton.com or go to freeburmarangers.org. If you're new to the channel, I'm a former Army Ranger, and I belong to a humanitarian aid organization called the Free Burma Rangers because it started in Myanmar, and now it's in several countries around the world. But we have a team here, and we've come into Syria for many years. We go and try to rescue people out of the front lines and bring them help, hope, and love in some of the most dangerous and miserable environments on earth. It's a very special organization that does a lot of work for people in the worst places on the planet. And so that's why I like to support them. If you want to support them too, go to freeburmarangers.org. Hit the donate button, go down to the drop down. It'll ask you what the donation is for. Click that little drop down button and pick other, and then it'll give you a little note field. And in the note field, just write Kurds, Kurds. Please don't write Syria. Please don't write Iran or anything like that, because if you do, your bank may close your account. But if you want to help us, help these people, that's the best way to do it right there, okay? Now, we today, just explaining more what we did here, we've been having meetings with Kurds who have fled their homes. We've been interviewing these people. I interviewed a young kid today. This is another special report I'm going to put up over at chuckholton.com. Interviewed a kid today who's in his 20s, and he was, about a year ago, he was kidnapped by HTS police. So guys in uniform with al-Galani's forces came to his house and kidnapped him and took him away and asked for $200,000 ransom from his family. And now the way they found him was he had the tracking software on his iPhone, and they took his iPhone away, but they had it with them at the same location where he was. And so his family was able to track where he had been taken. And then his dad had some friends that were high up in the SWAT team or police service or something like that. And he got them, somehow convinced them to go in and rescue his son. So they were telling his son, this is al-Galani's police. They were telling him, are you Kurd or are you Muslim? And he said, well, I'm a Kurdish Muslim. I'm Sunni Muslim. And they said, no, you cannot be Kurdish and Muslim. You have to choose one, either Kurd or Muslim. Which do you choose? And he was like, well, if that's the way you're going to be, then I choose Kurdish because I don't want to have anything to do with an Islam that the Islam you're talking about. And they said, okay, then we're going to execute you tomorrow by throwing you off a bridge and shooting you on the way down until you hit the ground. And they told him where it was going to happen, when it was going to happen. He got the date of his execution. And then that night he was rescued by his dad's police friends. So this is the kind of thing that's happening already across Syria in the areas HTS controls. in places like Aleppo. This was in Damascus. So this wasn't, in the area, some far-flung remote area there's a bunch of jihadis running around with ISIS. But no, this was right in Damascus. He was kidnapped and held for ransom by the government. So that's exciting. There are lots of politicians and important people in the United States that are waking up to this fact and are all over social media calling for President Trump to reverse course and stop listening to Tom Barak. So Tom Barak is the U.S. ambassador to Turkey. He is a billionaire businessman who has raised a tremendous amount of money for President Trump. And so by way of thank you, President Trump made him the ambassador to Turkey. Now, he's originally a Lebanese Christian, or I think he's a Christian. But apparently he is really under the thumb of Turkey somehow, because there were some leaked documents that came out, I think this morning, that showed correspondence with Barak and his people coming in Turkish, being written in Turkish to the HTS government saying, tell Tom Barak this, do that with Tom Barak, whatever. And so the strings are being pulled by Erdogan in Turkey without a doubt. And that is not good for America. It's not good for American foreign policy. It's not good for the people over here by any stretch. I mean, the first thing they did when HTS took over Raqqa last week was roll in truckloads of burqas and force every woman to put on a hijab. The Kurdish women don't wear hijabs. They are dressed like American women. They're modest, but I mean, they dress like, normal Western people with their hair uncovered and all that. And just imagine if you're a woman, what it would feel like for somebody to come take over your town and all of a sudden put out the decree that for modesty's sake, you got to stay covered up with a burqa. You wear your drapes around when you go to Walmart, stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, heck no. This is America. I do what I want. Well, that's kind of how the Kurds feel. That's one reason that they're going to fight like the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark to keep HTS out of this last remaining pocket because they want the ability to govern themselves. They've proven over the last 10 years that they can do it, that they're good at it. They can bring peace and prosperity to the people, whether or not they are Kurdish that live in their area. And so we should be giving them every opportunity to expand that. And indeed, if I was the president of the United States, I would be doing everything I could to help the Kurds get their own nation. Take Rojava, the eastern third of Turkey, Syria, and make it a different country. There's several good things about that. One of them is that by making two countries out of Syria, both countries that you make are going to be weaker than the one country united. Okay. And since so that's actually good for everybody in the region. If you get a bunch of fragmented, balkanized countries instead of, if you were, for example, able to split Turkey up into Western Armenia and then, I don't know, Van in the middle or something like that, and then Turkey on the other side, make Turkey into three nations, Turkey would be much less able to threaten its neighbors. So doesn't it seem smart to, try to do something like that with this area, especially because you have 40 million people living in this area across four countries, okay, Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq, that belong to the Kurdish ethnicity. 40 million people. I mean, Venezuela is 40 million people. Ukraine is 40 million people. That's the size that we're talking about here, and they don't have their own country, so they're just visitors, more or less, or at least thought of as visitors or even second-class citizens in the areas where they live. So they've proven to be able to maintain order. They've proven to be able to get along with America greatly. They've been great help to America, and so we ought to be returning the favor to them. But we're not. And so since we're not, they are coming up with their own neighborhood watch programs, I guess you'd call it, or sort of territorial defense forces. And it's not real encouraging to see the caliber of the people that they're putting guns in their hands now. Take a look. Yep. So. So what she's saying is that, when she says Daesh, that's the black pajama boys. And she's saying Galani. So I don't speak Kurmanji, but I can just through the context tell you that she's saying that Galani is a member of Daesh. And so we are going to fight, and we will not submit to Galani, no matter who backs him. And so, again, this is not likely to go well for the Kurds. They have quite a bit of combat power built up in this area for sure. But wars are bloody things. They're miserable. And so let's hope it does not come to fighting. There's more information that I would like to give you on that, but I'm gonna hold off until I get more corroboration, just so that we are making sure we're not passing out anything that isn't public knowledge yet. So let's get to your questions. First question is, if the United States does a blockade of Iran, do you expect the Chinese to blockade Taiwan in response? No, I do not. I don't think so. They've threatened, but it's not likely. Next question. How long do you think the war will last in Iran? Will there be other players that will cause it to be a QU? A QU? I think you got cut off there, Rex. If this thing goes down the way I think it might, we're probably talking about a matter of a week to 2 weeks. President Trump obviously favors shorter conflicts. He would love to get it over in a day, but this is not the kind of thing that can be over in a day. I doubt it would go on longer than a couple of weeks. President Trump just doesn't quite have the stomach for a long, drawn-out war. He's campaigned against them, so and good for him for doing so. Mr. Holton, what does MBS think about the black pajama people? Where is the money coming from? MBS does not like the black pajama people. The Saudi Arabia is not a Sunni country; they're a Shia country, and the black pajama guys are Sunni, and so they don't get along anyway. And so they actually pitched in to help fight the black pajama boys when they had taken over back in 2014, 15, around there. So I'm pretty sure they were part of that coalition. Rex says, do you think other players will come to Iran's cause and prolong the war? Hezbollah says that they will. Let's see, the Hashishabi, or the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, say that they will come to the defense of Iran. And, of course, there's the Houthi slideshow down there being crazy. So it's very likely that if we strike Iran, we will see other entities jumping in like that. But we have a pretty good coalition of countries that have agreed to help our side as well, like Jordan and the UAE. They've agreed to help, and that's a good sign, without a doubt. Okay, next question. Why did Trump tell the Iranians that the U.S. was locked and loaded but still not done anything? Because the U.S. was not locked and loaded. We didn't even have our forces in the region. Now we've had to move them all over there. That was just President Trump saying stuff, which he tends to do quite often. All right, next. What's the point of discussions with the Iran regime like China? They're never going to honor their agreements. They should have been removed years ago. That's a great comment. It's not really a question, but it's more of a rhetorical question. I am completely in agreement. I think you understand you understand the issue well there, Larry. Next question. Could Iran already have a nuke? Not likely. If they did, we would likely know about it. Listen, the Israelis have a lot of intelligence inside Iran. I mean, a lot. They are so deeply entrenched inside Iran that the Iranians are running scared. So if they did, it's very likely that we would know. Besides, if they wanted to, normally when you make a nuclear bomb, you test one to make sure that it works. And we would have picked up the test if they had done one. So no, I don't think they already have a nuke. Thank you for the question, Leon. On Flight Radar 24, there's been a lot of activity of U.S. Navy recon drones near UAE. What data are they collecting? Aerial imaging, comms, et cetera. A lot of signals intelligence, some aerial imagery for sure. What are they looking for? They're looking for launch sites. They're looking for changes in what they see. So the way that these work is they go out, they just collect everything. They just film everything and they feed it all into a computer, and the computer compares it to the last time they flew over that spot and decides whether or not anything has changed in there. So if they dug a hole or if there's new vehicles there or something like that, that's something different. And the AI will flag that, put it in a database, and then it goes back through all of those maybes, the potential targets, and ranks them with, from most likely to be something we want to blow up to least likely to be something we want to blow up. And then a human gets involved and looks at the list and decides which things to actually blow up. So that's how that works. And signals intelligence, we're sniffing everything. We're picking up everything they've got. Any cell phones, any satellite, anything, everything but carrier pigeons. That's one of the reasons why criminal elements around the globe are moving more and more to encrypted messaging platforms like Signal and that sort of thing. And even that can be picked up, but I don't know about decrypted. I'm not even going to comment on that because I probably would get into over my head pretty quick. Next question. I heard that chloropistrin was used in Iran. Any word on that? I have heard that they had used some of it against protesters that they likely got from Russia. So I've been able to corroborate that. Obviously, I've never seen any footage that came out of that, but there are claims that it's being used against protesters, and it can certainly, it's like tear gas that will actually kill you. Okay. Next question. What's the difference between the Islamo-fascist Iranian regime and the Syrian Islamo-fascist regime, one controlled by the USA and the other not? Well, I wouldn't say that the Syrian regime under al-Galani is controlled by the USA. They are pretending to be friendly to the USA, without a doubt, but I would not say that they are controlled by the USA. I think they want the USA to believe, they want President Trump to believe that he has some pull with the Syrian leadership under al-Shara, but in reality, they do what they want. And so they're putting on, it's a very two-faced organization. They're putting on this face that faces the West, saying, look at us, we wear suits, we're nice and civilized. And then the part that's facing their own people inside Syria is women to the back of the bus, put on your burqa, sit down and shut up, and we'll decide who to sell you to later. And that kind of thing is actually happening across the areas of Syria that al-Galani controls. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, it's eminently possible that al-Galani gets overthrown. Very possible. There's been like 2 assassination attempts inside the palace in Damascus, and al-Galani has survived. But there are factions out there that want nothing more than to take out Galani and take power for themselves. And the biggest of those factions, it looks like, is the resurgent Islamic State. And think about what I just said there. When they took over Syria the first time in 2014, the Black Pajama people had about 3,000 troops. Now they have 10,000 troops, and they're getting more every day as the prisons get opened up and these people get released. Now, the United States says that they are transferring the highest risk prisoners out of these camps where they've been held for 10 years and transferring them to Iraq. And I don't doubt that they are. They likely are. But they're not able to get all of the prisoners out to Iraq. And so a lot of these jihadis are just being set loose inside Syria. So that I would expect that number to rise from 10,000 to 20,000 and maybe more. And I would expect that at some point that organization is going to make a bid to take over Syria and reestablish the caliphate that they tried to start back in the day. And we'll see if al-Galani can actually survive all that. Okay? Now, next question. What does Trump have in mind when our ships arrive? Well, don't ask me to guess what's in Trump's mind. I can't read his mind at all. And he says stuff, and then he doesn't do the stuff he says, and then he does stuff that he didn't say he was going to do. And sometimes he says he's going to do it, and then he does it eventually. But I don't know. We just have to wait and see. But by putting our ships in the region, it gives him options. And I think that's really the point. That's what he's looking for, is options. I would be too. Next question. I wonder how much Russia or China would step in. They would not. Neither of them will step in if the United States attacks Iran. And you can take that to the bank. Russia, because it can't, and China, because they've got their own problems right now, and they wouldn't want to get that in, to get in the middle of all that. Did you hear Tuesday report yesterday that the regime is moving the deceased to air bases to cover their tracks and then be able to blame the U.S. for deaths? Yeah, I did hear that. I haven't been able to corroborate it. I like Tuesday TV, but you have to sometimes. I mean, he's real sensational, so you have to think critically about the things he's saying. And I'm not saying he's lying at all. I'm not saying he's wrong at all. But I'm saying that there usually is a journalistic standard that has to be met for information that you put out, and he doesn't always follow that standard. Truthfully, neither do I. But so I'm not. It's not a knock on Tusi. I like him. I watch his stuff a lot, and he definitely knows his stuff about Iran since he's Iranian. So anyway, next question. Since people keep asking you, are you giving out too much information? Can you give us wise words of wisdom for not to share info since we seem to be in a wartime situation? Listen, if you are not here, then you don't have much ability to get privy to information that is classified or would violate operational security. I mean, if I wanted to, we had a big discussion today because we were doing a skit out in the front yard of our safe house here, which has a big fence around it. And they were practicing the skit. So, they were jumping around and making fools of themselves because they make the kids laugh when they do that. And so our team was just practicing that because we're going to do some of those, what they call good life clubs for the kids tomorrow. So somebody filmed it and then they wanted to put it out on social media. We have a deal that we run things through Free Burma Rangers before we put it out on social media, just to make sure that we don't give away anything we shouldn't. And the decision was made not to put out that funny clip of our guys dancing around, because you could see over the fence behind them some tall buildings in Kamishi. And if you were smart, you could take that photo or take a photo of that or a frame grab, and you could triangulate from those buildings, which are visible in the background, to where we are located, and that people could find us at our safe house. Obviously, we don't want that. So we decided not to put that up. If you're just at home and you're surfing the internet and you're finding information, I wouldn't be sharing information unless you believe that you've done your due diligence to make sure it's not fake news. Don't just pass everything along. Now, we all get caught up in that from time to time. There are some fake news that come out, some misinformation that comes out that is very convincing and can fool even me. So I wouldn't beat yourself up about it too much, but just try not to share things that might be misinformation. If I have a doubt, then what I'll do is I'll hit the little heart button on X, which only saves it for me and not for everybody else. And then maybe go back and look at it later and see if I can figure out whether or not it's true. But here in the war zone, I do have to be cautious about what I film. I have to ask people, hey, can I show your face on camera? And so sometimes they'll say no. A couple of the interviews I did today had to be anonymized because, the subject of the interview was likely in danger of violence from sleeper cells or whatever. And so they didn't want to show their face. Next question. Why is Trump still talking about nuclear negotiations with the Iranian regime when every sane person knows they don't value it? Okay, so we got that same question from somebody else, Nate. The answer is just, yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you there. So next question. Do you think Iran will fire missiles on our military ships to try and start a war against the United States? If the United States bombs Iran, I do think Iran will fire missiles at our ships. Missiles and drones and whatever else they have. I think our ships are pretty well defended. So I'm not super worried, but it's war and stuff can always happen. So we need to be praying for our troops that are in harm's way. I don't think at this point the Iranians are going to preemptively strike. That's just based on the fact that they are kind of calling for negotiations. I don't think they actually want to negotiate. I just think that's been a great stalling tactic for them in the past. So let's say we're willing to negotiate and then draw the negotiations out as long as possible. And that gives us more time to kill our adversaries here inside Iran and to build up our forces for a war against Israel. So that's what I think is happening. The Iranians have some submarines, so it's possible they could sink some carriers. Well, it's always possible, but I don't think it's likely. Next question. Oh my goodness, is he a Russian implant and not truly American? Are you talking about Tom Barak? I don't know that he's a Russian implant, but he certainly is not acting in America's best interest.
What's that guy's name?
Thomas Barak?
No. The other guy that you pulled up who was talking about how he would kill all the Israelis and everything.
Oh, Scott Ritter?
Scott Ritter, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter is definitely, I've tracked down the paperwork. He is definitely on the payroll of Russia in the United States. And Russia, what they do is Russia sends money to these marketing firms in the United States, and these marketing firms hire people like Scott Ritter with that money. So it's kind of laundered money, but yeah, he is certainly on the payroll of the Russians. Do you think Iran wants to talk to the United States to avoid a war? No, they don't. Next question. Could Iran use nuclear? No, they couldn't. Next question. C5 Galaxies, does that mean boots on the ground? No, not necessarily, because C5 Galaxies can carry cargo. They can carry, bombs and ammunition and things like that. So we don't know what was inside those C5 Galaxies. Now, they can carry troops. I've ridden in lots of C5 Galaxy aircraft, the biggest aircraft you've ever seen. You can fit 4 Greyhound buses inside one of those things and still put 200 troops in it. They're cavernous inside. I've actually parachuted out of them multiple times. So no, it doesn't mean boots on the ground just ipso facto. Next question. What do you, is USA stretched in too many places? I don't know that we're stretched in too many places, but what we just did in Venezuela, we took so many forces down there that it did leave other areas undefended. And I guess you could either say, yes, we're in too many places, or no, we just don't have enough ships. Either way, President Trump says he's going to increase the U.S. military budget this year by 50% over last year. That would make it a $1.5 trillion military budget. And that would enable us to start to modernize some of our ships and build more ships and get more out there. I'm not sure why we would bother, since it seems like there are people within the administration who would like to see the United States just abandon everybody else in the world and not do anything with any other country. Talked about that yesterday. What do you think of the North Koreans' latest missile testing and preparations to potentially fight with Iran? And North Korea is not going to fight on the side of Iran. They test their missiles so that they can sell them to their clients, which is like Russia and maybe China and Kazakhstan, countries that are, in that orbit, like CSTO countries. Maybe, I don't know what other countries would buy things from North Korea. Doesn't sound like a good idea to me, but anyway. Next question. What is Trump waiting on? These people are waiting for Trump action against the evil regime. That's true. And that's a rhetorical question. I mean, how are the Druze these days in Syria? They have been armed by the Israelis, and so they're doing pretty well. The Israelis are even paying the salaries of their fighters, like to the tune of $300 a month per man or something like that. So I'd say the Druze are doing much, much better, for sure. Next question. Will you pray for American citizens in Minneapolis? Sure. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you for the fact that we can come to you with, every concern that we have, no matter how big or small. And our big concern, Lord, is for Americans who are up in Minnesota, where we're seeing all these riots and protests. And so I ask, Lord, that you would calm those protests. You would thwart the plans of evil men that would like to destroy our country. And you would cause this to be an element that creates unity with people against the rioting, unity of people against the protesting, and that American patriots would come out and support our law enforcement, and they'd be able to do their jobs. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, how's that? Do you think Trump's handling of this Iran situation is as bad as Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan? Maybe not quite as expensive for the United States, but so not the Iran thing specifically, but more the thing in Syria, where we had troops in Syria and we were supporting the good guys in the region, and we just switched sides like that. And now we're just abandoning the Kurds after more than a decade of faithful help by them. So that is pretty gross. We may not be leaving behind $86 million worth of military hardware, but that doesn't make it any less morally egregious. Okay, next question. Did the Kurds rescue some of the Armenians in the genocide of 1914 through 17? Actually, there were more Kurds who helped the Turks by victimizing the Armenians. Back at that time, there were, for example, Kurds who bought Armenian girls for their harems and things like that. There were Kurdish groups that killed Armenians. So they haven't always been great friends. I think they're better friends now. They feel more of a kinship now. But they kind of like to conveniently forget that their ancestors were not real kind to the Armenians during the Armenian genocide. Next question. Once Iran kicks off, will Turkey try to take targets in Syria, Iraq, and Iran? Turkey does Turkey things. Maybe. Turkey's already got troops inside Syria, and they undoubtedly have a bunch of targets they'd like to hit. And so they may take that opportunity of the U.S. being distracted to hit the things that they want to hit and then, ask forgiveness later. Okay, next question. Is any other agency helping with the needs of the people? Yeah, there are several here. The Barzani Foundation is helping with the needs of the people. And, there are others that we've run into. We haven't hung out with those guys this time. So I'm not going to name any more names because I don't know any more names. But I know there are some. How could the Iranian civilians with no military training take it from there? Wouldn't they need assistance on the ground? Well, they would. If you arm them and put a gun in their hand, I'd say if you get out enough guns, they'll figure it out. So many of the people that we see here in Rojava that are carrying weapons are plumbers and laborers and construction workers and housewives, all now armed up and ready to fight. And so, having some training is good. It certainly makes you more survivable, but it's not a deal breaker if you don't have much training, because most people can figure out how to point the pointy end of a gun at the bad people and then push the bang switch, right? All right, next question. Are the UN and aid trucks showing up to the Kurds? I haven't seen any UN aid trucks. I did see a couple UN vehicles the other day, but they were just parked on the side of the road.
Hey, everybody. I think he's frozen again. We'll give him a few minutes to reconnect. It's probably something to do with the Starlink. We'll see if he pops back up. Oh, yeah. Okay. So he just popped off. So that means his Starlink is refreshing. So he will be back on. I'm not sure what he's drinking. It looks like some kind of tea. Usually he likes to drink tea for his throat because his profession is talking. So as you can imagine, professionally talking for over 20 years, it kind of wears out your throat a little bit. So he has to have something. I'm not sure if he's coming back this time, honestly. He's not popping back up, but we'll wait a few more minutes. thank you so much, everybody, for joining live. It's so great to see all of you on here with us. Now I'm freezing. Says I'm roboting. We're going to take a few minutes here, and I realized I could do this. I want to thank all of you who are donating. We've got several donations coming through. Thank you for the $2 Dutch carp fishing oil. Thank you for the coffee funds. Who else? We have $5 Canadian. Appreciate what you do, Chuck. We'll be donating to FBR as well. Thank you so much for donating to the FBR. The FBR are an amazing group. They're absolutely wonderful. I've gotten to see them in action, and it's kind of a dream of mine to work with them as well someday. So thank you so much to everyone who's donating. PC, thank you for your donation there. And Chuck just joined back on, so he will be popping back over to your questions here in a minute. So I'll pass it back over to him, and he can continue answering your questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Sorry, internet went out again. So what question were we on? I forget. Talked about UN aid trucks. We talked about, Chuck, are you coming back to Israel if this thing starts with Iran? No, I'll probably stay here. I'm closer to Iran here than I would be if I was in Israel. Next question. Who's the office thermos in that background, Chuck? Are you a fan? Oh, this? No, that's not mine. That's just one of our medics. And I don't know what the office is, actually. I don't consume media. I make TV. I don't watch it. So next question. Is Trump going to let Iran cross his red line? Well, they already did, like a long time ago. So I guess he is going to let them because they're doing it. Next question. So we always backstab the Kurds. Whose side are they on? They're on their own side now. I don't know that we're ever going to get the trust of the Kurds back after this one. We have really double-crossed them multiple times. Next one. Can we donate to the FBR from your Chuck Holton website? Because I tried to do it yesterday at the FBR website and couldn't get it to go through. Getting paid on the 1st, we'll be able to become a member. Obviously you are supporting FBR if you're supporting me over here with FBR, and we are helping people every day that we're here. So yeah, that you can do it that way too. But I would recommend, if you can, to donate through the freeburmarangers.org. So it's definitely earmarked for that mission. Okay. Next question. When did the situation in Turkey change? I used to work for an airline that was US based and have flown. Well, the situation in Turkey changed when Erdogan took office. That's the long and the short of that question. What's up with all the Chinese cargo planes in Iran? Yeah, I've heard about that. It's thought that here's my guess, and it's just a conjecture. China sent a bunch of its top, most advanced air defense radar systems to Venezuela prior to the operation that took out Maduro. They also sent Chinese PLA advisors to train the Venezuelans how to use those things and make sure they got used right. When we struck, some of those Chinese advisors were still in Venezuela and they got stuck there. And they were sort of panicking. So then, we didn't ever invade. We just took Maduro out and then left. And so those Chinese PLA guys came back to China and they said, we don't know what went wrong. Okay, we got to figure out what went wrong here, because our, vaunted radar systems that were supposed to be able to shoot down an F-35 from 150 kilometers just failed completely. They fell flat on their faces. So let's figure out what happened and see if we can fix that. So they are implementing changes to their systems and sending those systems to Iran, because now Iran's about to get the pointy end of the U.S. military stick. And so they want to gather more data on our tactics, techniques, and procedures, and hopefully try to improve their air defense capabilities so that if there's a war over Taiwan, the Chinese will be better off. That's my guess. And that's just a guess. Okay, next question. How many troops does Iran have? 350,000 or something? Iran's army is the largest army in the Middle East, but they're not expeditionary, so they're not going to be like, marching to Jerusalem or anything. They can really only threaten people inside their country or their immediate neighbors. Okay. Next question. How is it likely that Kurds in Turkey move toward an alignment with Russia? Well, no, the Kurds are not likely to move toward an alignment with Russia. The Kurds don't like Russians. The Russians were fighting on behalf of Bashar al-Assad, who was fighting the Kurds and killing Kurds, back when he was in power. So there's not a lot of love lost between the Russians and the Kurds. So I don't think you have to worry about that. Next question. Why would Iran need to make a nuke? Can't they just get one from China or Russia and put it on a rocket? They bring one in shielded from radiation detection. That's not as easy as it sounds. And I think the short answer is no, probably not. And then we'll leave it at that. I won't give you the long answer. What do you make of Turkey and Qatar being on the proposed peace board? Well, I mean, does it make a lot of sense to put known state sponsors of terror on a board of peace? Weird. Next question. Let's hurry up. I'm a little bit late, so it seems like we're almost always going to attack, but days and days go by. How close are we? It could be tonight. It could be next week. It could be several months from now. There was one news article I saw today that speculated that President Trump might wait a couple of months to strike Iran, which would not be good for the protesters. Question, Chuck, what's the possibility of the troops left in the bases around the Middle East could be deployed to Iran? No, we're not going to deploy troops to Iran. Full stop. We don't need to go any further, Rich. Why would they need to to make a nuke? We already did that one. Is it possible to estimate how many percentage of the Iranians would unite around Pahlavi toward a democratic future after the war? More than 90%. That's the estimate I'm hearing from Iranians. Do you think the U.S. should intervene and help the Persian people? If I was president, yes, we would have intervened, and the whole world would be better off for it. Hello, Chuck. If you think a big number of Kurds from other countries to join the war, they could change the outcome. Sure, there's 40 million of them. They could raise a 1 million-man army if they wanted to, but that's easier said than done. Could a war against Iran start a U.S.-Russia war? No, it couldn't. That wouldn't happen. Russia can't even beat Ukraine. What do you think Russia's going to do against the United States? What's the red stuff you're drinking? It's just tea. I made some tea. I don't know. I just grabbed something off the shelf, and it's kind of fruity, and I don't know. It's got ginger in it, and that's good. It's good for my voice. And last question. What do you think? Will Khamenei's son send all his money abroad to flee like Assad? I think they are making preparations to do that. And if the United States attacks and it looks like they're about to get strung up on a pole somewhere, they might jump on a private charter jet and get the heck out of Dodge. So, yeah, that's real possible. Okay. So, yeah, and one last thing that I just remembered. Thank you to whoever, Alpha, Jesus, Omega. Al-Galani today went to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin. So that right there should tell you everything you need to know. If he's friendly with Vladimir Putin, then should we be friendly with him? No, we shouldn't. But we have a president of the United States who himself is friendly with Vladimir Putin. So there's that. Okay. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. Sorry for all the technical glitches. It's just par for the course while we're over here in Syria. That's called Wednesday in Syria when you have technical problems. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. God bless you, and we will see you next time. Take care.